Hey guys, how's it going? Recently, I was able to participate in the March of the Machine early access event, and I had a draft that I thought was maybe a decent look at what one archetype may shape up to look like, and so I thought it might be interesting to run through it and see if it's helpful to anyone or if anyone has some ideas that I overlooked. That'd be really cool to hear from too. So yeah, let's see if we can jump in. So. For early on in a format, which this is clearly very early on because it's the early access, I'm usually interested in trying to learn more about the format than necessarily draft the best deck that I can. Not to say I'm not trying to draft a good deck, but that it's more of a focus for me to learn what works, what doesn't, and to test certain things out. And so when it comes to this pick, I assume that this card is good, but I also feel like I'm pretty comfortable knowing what I'm going to get from this. Its floor is just an efficient removal spell. And then the fact that you have potential to get card advantage is just going to be a generically very good card. And I was curious to see how this Saram would work out. I had known at the time I picked this that there's like the 1-mana 1/1 Vigilance equip that I expect to be pretty good in the format. I didn't really know off the top of my head much in the way of like vehicles, if there were any auras that I was interested in playing. I know there's a pacifism effect. I had since learned after this that there's like the red 3/1 vehicle with haste in red that is interesting too. So, at the time I just wanted to see how this plays out. Drawing a card when you play something is definitely a powerful effect, and its floor as a 2-mana 2/2 is, still playable. So I went with the SRAM here. Other notables, I did have a draft before that I splashed this black-red guy, and I was pretty happy with him. I think the effect is supported well enough that it's probably going to be a good playable card from the small experience I had. Some other things, I don't really know much about this card. I played against it, I think, once. And, 2 mana that deals as, like, functionally maybe, like, kind of a 3/3 is still pretty powerful. On turn 2 if you're beating down, so I'd imagine this is a pretty playable card. There's this battle here that I can't read sideways, but I'm sure you guys either know what it does or can read, unlike me. I guess it kills something that's a non-elf or something of that sort. But anyways, I went with this RAM. And then from here, went with the Rayav Mastersmith. I already have something that is going to kind of incentivize me to want to pick up the equips. So having something else that, is synergistic with that or consistent with that game plan seems nice. Other notables, this Red Battle, which honestly, I don't know how good this is. I didn't really play with or against it much. So I usually withhold judgment. I'll figure it out on the spot, and I'll get a more concrete idea once I play with the cards. But yeah, this is an unknown to me at the moment. A rare in black, but again, I wanted the opportunity to see if white-red is a thing at this point. I had played black already in a previous draft, and I was just trying to learn about red. 2/2 lifelink for 2 is pretty much good in every format recently that I can think of, so I can't imagine this isn't a decent or maybe probably above rate 2 drop. But anyways, taking the synergy pick. And this is the first one for me that is maybe kind of an interesting one from a discussion or learning perspective. I was interested in seeing, in addition to like, hey, what does white-red look like just generically, this card I think is just generally a good card. It's on rate. If you can flip it, the incubator with this in play, you've gotten essentially 4 mana worth of stats on a card for 4 mana split over 2 turns. But of course, you can flip other incubators and still get counters. And I think that this is just a powerful effect. And that said, though, it's also a little bit how do you say, like, there's a small amount of tension with this and this kind of aggressive curve out equipment plan because paying 2 to incubate and playing a 2 mana 1/1 isn't exactly the same thing you want to necessarily be doing, maybe if you're trying to beat down or be especially aggressive. And so I was curious to see how this plays, looking like an above rate card and something you're pretty much always going to want to play, is my guess. But I was curious to see if we could find a way to make that work and to see sort of how that all plays out. Also, just to try and shave a little bit of time, because I do have some games loaded up that I was going to go through for this if people wanted to look at it. I'm not going to talk about every card in the pack, so if there is something that I overlook or don't talk about, then you're welcome to mention it to me at some point or in the comments. Yeah, I'm not going to go over every card, even though I understand it's a new set and maybe some of these aren't going to be known to everybody. But okay, moving on. From here, not much in the way of my colors. This thing is, I think, going to be well supported if you have a sacrifice deck, but I don't look to be going that direction. This guy I'm not really too big on. Its stats are not especially impressive. It bounces your own creature. The fact that it gives trample is a big thing if you're beating down, but it also has to attack itself to do that, and it can't give itself trample. There's a lot going against this card for me that I'm not huge on at the moment. Maybe if you have some kind of rebuyable ETB, then this is a thing, maybe, but I'm pretty much not looking to play this probably. But this is another card that I wanted to test out. One drops, I think, can have a large amount of variability in how good they are, because the fact that they're 1 mana means small adjustments to their effects or their stats can have a large impact on how good they are, right? Because you can, for 1 mana, you only need to make something a little bit better in order for it to become very good, right? So, the extreme scenario, something like Ogiba Reckoner Raid from Neo was kind of absurd. And if you have a generic, 1 mana 1/1 flyer that does nothing else, it's not a good card. Network Disruptor from that same set, great card, right? So I think it's hard for me at least to evaluate 1-drops all the time. And also, I had the thought that this is maybe an interesting way to tie together these things that I was doing, because if I'm trying to push damage, and I had this, like we said, kind of tension with the incubate strategy versus the aggressive curve out strategy, I noticed that if I put the counter on the incubate token, that it makes it kind of pseudo unblockable that turn, because if they trade off with the incubate token, with this having the backup trigger on it, then or the backup effect on it, then I get all the counters back from the incubator. So this is something that I was interested in trying out to see if this is a way to maybe tie together this otherwise generically good card with this plan that might be a little bit at tension or odds with it. So taking the 1-drop here. Amongst these, here I have this 5 mana backup double striker. And this is a plan that I had been looking at going into the format. This idea of having strong 2s and 3s that carry counters well, and then having strong backup effects on 4 and 5 as your top end. I hadn't actually seen this card specifically before it was in this pack, but giving something double strike on ETB is a huge bonus. And there's already some things that synergize with the counters, this can move counters around potentially. And I know that that I would kind of like to pick up some of the there's a 4 mana guy that has backup 1, and the ability is it taps down something on attacks, and that's one of the main cards I was looking at to learn about in this format, because there have been cards like that are not good with that effect. But that one in particular has the feel to me of kind of like the red exert one from Amonkhet, where it can do its thing the turn it comes down, and the fact that it continues to do so on a following turn, I think that card, if you curve out to it and have good 3-drops, is a particularly strong plan. So I wanted to test that out, and so incidentally, I want cards that hold counter as well, and so I picked this up. Also, again, being an uncommon, the opportunity to test it's kind of nice. Here, as good as Intervention I think is, or expect it to be, I'm going to pick up the Halberd because I have the equipment effects already, and I think that this style of deck really wants their first Halberd very badly, and probably their second very badly as well. This, by the way, one to keep an eye on is one of the 3-drops I want to draft in order to put counters on, because you can maximize the counters on a double striker for obvious reasons, right? Because it makes it harder to block on the toughness side, and you get double the damage value on the counter. Here, I don't remember what I picked here. I might go with an aerial boost. Again, with the game plan that, like, if I want to pick up the 3-mana double strikers and things that are good at pushing damage, the flying is likely relevant. And I already have a way to give double strike here, or to, for it itself to have double strike, at which point flying and plus damage becomes a very real threat. And this style of deck probably wants some amount of combat tricks anyways. Some consideration for the Cavalier, but I already have a decent curve going. I have 3 2-drops and 1 1-drop. And I don't know that I'm going to be very knight-centric in this kind of build. And so this might be the kind of 2-drop that doesn't quite make the deck. It doesn't really carry the equip super well or any of the counters because it only has 1 toughness. So if I'm not doing the knight thing heavily enough, this is probably the lower end of 2-drops I would want in this style of deck. And it was the boost. Okay. Here, I mean, there is an argument to take Raft just because it's a great card, and I'm not that heavy into red, but I really did want to test the red deck here. So I end up taking the Heliod, which is functionally a 4-mana 4/4. I don't really have enchantments to really recur very much, and the flip side of this isn't super appealing to me because even though it's a powerful effect, I don't think this deck wants to be spending its mana doing that, like to flip the Heliod. So this is a 4-mana 4/4 essentially, but I picked it just to maybe test out if I do end up playing it, and if not, its floor is still a 4-mana 4/4. It's fine. Here on the wheel, I think I take this flyer. Again, I'm looking for things that can carry counters well, and flying does that. Probably not as good as a double striker, but it still pushes damage and still is effective at carrying those counters. So, I'm happy to pick this up. I do already have an Inquisitor for the flipping the incubators. So there's also, I'm kind of keeping an eye on that if I can, end up going that route as well. Here, again, generically good 2-drop, happy to pick it up. It carries the counters well, carries equip well, same thing we've been talking about. This one, I think I take the Kite Sail, just because, again, I do have incentives to have equips with these two cards here. And again, Kite Sail's on the lower end of the things I want to fill in my equip slot, so to speak. But again, if I'm going to have cards that care about extra power more, I don't mind having a Kite Sail in a pinch. I'd rather have a Kite Sail than nothing if I never got a second equip, for instance. This one, I'm not too enthused with any of these. I didn't really think that I wanted to take this route with this deck, because I don't know about hasting out 1/3s and that kind of thing. Again, I'm looking to pick up those double strikers, and so hasting out the 1/3 double striker is meh, right? Having it land and then attacking the turn later when I can pump it in some way is really more of what I'm planning. So I don't know if maybe this is still good enough, or I'm sure there are versions where you want this, but I wasn't super huge on this one. This card, to me, it kind of does the thing with the backup and the flying that this deck is doing, but I don't know. It's a little too expensive in my opinion. It costs 5 mana. And I'd rather have my good backup effects hitting on 4. And I think it's worse comparatively than giving something double strike is my feeling. And the fact that this is also still a massive threat on its own, this double striker. So I take the 4-drop. I mentioned earlier I'm not huge on it, but in a pinch, if I need to, I'll play it over, if I have literally nothing at the top of my curve. Amongst these, I think I end up taking this Coming in Hot as just a generic combat trick. In hindsight, I don't know if it's better than the Burning Sun's Fury. I likely don't want to play either one because there's only so many slots in the deck you can dedicate to non-creatures when you're doing this aggressive strategy. And I would prefer, ideally, that I could pick up more Halberds, or there are 2 white combat tricks I would play over either of these, probably in Aerial Boost and the protection one that gives a counter. So I'm not huge on either of these, but I think you could make the argument this would be better if I'm planning to hit the double strikers. Because I don't know that they were high picks in this draft or that I expected them to be. So I was hoping I could pick them up. And if I want that kind of thing, or I'm playing flyers, things that carry power well anyways, then pushing damage might be better than trying to just win one combat. But anyways, so I took this. Fortunately, this thing wheels. Again, I'm looking to test this out, so happy to pick it up. Don't really want to play that thing. Okay, pack 2. As far as what I could be doing, aside from this Rayav, which isn't even super good right now, and maybe the Scald, which is maybe quite good, My red's not like especially incredible. I could hypothetically take like a pretty good blue common maybe. But again, I'm trying to test this red deck. I take this in case I end up wanting to splash it because I didn't feel like I was passing that much. This card is decent, but I think not great. Again, the 1 toughness, it doesn't carry the counter super well. And I don't think this deck wants to be spending its mana transforming. So just take the rare with the intention of maybe splashing it if I end up there. This card I saw and was very interested to try because if I can put it on certain creatures, either the flyer or the 1/3, it poses a very big threat. It's a little clunky was the kind of downside. For obvious reason, 5 mana is a lot, but it does have Convoke. And I really didn't know how this is going to play out, and I'm interested to try. As far as the battle goes, the effect of the Anthem I think is quite good. I actually lost a game to this for sure. But my plan is that I'd like, the thing I'm mostly testing, as I mentioned, I want to have a 3-drop that carries counter as well, something that can be a large threat, and then I'd rather like to curve it into one of the bolster threats, or not bolstered, backup threats, or whatever, or a combat trick plus a 2-drop, that kind of plan. And this doesn't really go hand in hand with that because playing a 2/2 is not as big of a threat if I can pump it up on turn 4. So here I took the sword. Amongst these, I could take another Hellier, but for all the reasons we mentioned, I'm not super huge on it. I do want another one of these for the reasons we talked about wanting the first one, but I think I end up taking this here. 2 reasons. First of all, 3 mana, 3/3 Vigilance does do the thing where we, carrying the counter as well that we've been talking about. And so I wanted to make sure that I have at least some density of good 3s like that. And also I thought this is more likely to wheel. So here, same discussion earlier. This card is just generically, I think, quite good. I wanted to pick it up here over this I thought might wheel again. And this one is, I think, a quite good card, but again, not quite on plan because I don't know how much I'm getting to 6 mana. I certainly don't want to be spending my early turns plane cycling, even if, you would if you need to, but it's not what I'd prefer to be doing. I'd rather just take a very good 2-drop, or what I think is a very good 2-drop. And this one's very interesting. So I think the default pick, they're like the kind of, a level 1 pick here is like the Seal from Existence, just because it's a generically good card. You need some interaction. I don't actually have straight removal in my deck really at all. But I actually go with the Slinger here. So this was the card I was mentioning. 2/2, backup 1. When it attacks, you can tap a creature or artifact, and you get this effect the turn it comes down if you put the counter on something else. So what I was looking to try was to put the like if I can curve a 1/3 into this thing is going to be very hard to block on that turn if it also gets to tap down whatever their best blocker was that they had just played. And then assuming that's the case, then if I untap with this, the following turn I can maybe have like combat tricks up or more equips. And this will then tap down whatever their best blocker is. And if you can get 2 tap downs with this while attacking with a double striker, that seems like a very powerful thing to be doing. I could certainly see this being a wrong pick, that Seal is maybe better still, but this kind of thing was specifically something I was looking to test out in the early access because of how powerful it could potentially be, and that if it doesn't work out, then on stats alone, this card is not... probably not going to get it done. So this is like a very happy to pick up just for learning purposes. All right. So for this one, I have more of these 3-drops, and I kind of have to make a decision. I actually don't remember exactly which one I picked. I think I took the double striker. Maybe not though, but the idea is both of these should carry the counter a little well. I think I'm starting to get a larger density. So I have a counter here. I have another good equip to put on it. Counter here. One more of these counters and the 1 mana equip. So this double striker I think is going to end up being fairly powerful in this deck. Same with the Kite Sail and Arrow Boost work with it quite well as well. But I could see taking this. I honestly have no idea. So this is just a little bit of a shot in the dark. And yeah, I did end up taking the double striker here. This one, nothing too exciting. I think that this is better than this Bruiser, so I'm happy to pick this up just as a generically reasonably statted card. Although, like I said, it's not super on plan with what I have, other than the fact that I'm happy enough to curve into it. But I don't think I'm giving up anything to take it. Here, I'm okay to pick up another 2-drop here. I think this game plan really does rely on you hitting 2-3 and then 4, or 2-3-3 kind of thing. If you miss early on, at least the way I'm trying to build it at the moment, I think that it can hurt your plans quite substantially. So I'm happy to pick up a kind of extra 2-drop. Amongst these, not much in my colors. This thing, though, I do now have 2 of the Inquisitors. So, being able to incubate and transform is pretty nice. And again, it's just its floor is like a 2-mana 2/2, which you wouldn't play if you can avoid it. But at the same time, having that out is kind of nice. And if you do get to destroy something, I mean, this is solid value. So pick it up as a maybe. And then from here, I actually am not really big on this card. I might take it just because it's a 1-drop, and at the moment I just have the 1. But I'm not really huge on it. Both sides aren't super impressive. I think that sometimes people also will... I think one of the themes of this cycle of cards is people are going to underestimate the negative consequences of the life loss on the flips. 2 life isn't nothing, and so if you're playing something that's not super efficient, like this could trade off with some 2-drops and most 3-drops, and you're sinking a decent amount of money or mana into it, then I don't know. I don't think it's a bad card, but I also am not huge on it. I could see taking this too, but yeah, okay, so I take the 1-drop. Here, super happy to wheel this like we had talked about from this pack. I think we passed them anticipating that they could wheel, so happy to pick one up. Same again here. Happy to get the other double striker. Probably not an inspired charge deck the way this is. I'm not going wide or anything. And so on to pack 3. This card I actually played with in one deck earlier, and I liked it quite a bit. If you are kind of grinding a little bit more, or if you need 1 mana play to slot in because your mana can be a little awkward. Sometimes I've noticed the incubate tokens could get a little bit awkward because you want to leave up 2 mana, and maybe like on turn 3 your best play is to flip 1, but you don't have another 1-drop. So stuff like this that can fill in and keep you mana efficient, I think it is pretty nice. But anyways, I think I take this beat stick here. Again, it's an equipment, and I wanted to test this. I'm not super high on it because it's not a pick, right? Like a Goldbane pick. Equip 2 is very different than Equip 1. And so I am not huge on it, but if there was going to be a deck I could play, it would be maybe something like this. So I would give it a shot. Here, I think I end up taking this guy. So this thing too at common is another reason that I wanted to attempt this deck. Both white and red have 3-drop slots that become very powerful if you can back up into them. Specifically with this, right, I'd like to pick up more of these, or at least one more of these, because if you go 4-3 and you turn it on by giving it a counter, so now it can permanently attack, and also you tap down their best blocker, they're not going to have good blocks for a 5-4 if you're tapping down their best blocker on turn 4. Like, I just can't really fathom that's happening unless they have like a death touch creature or something like that, which presumably you could just tap down. So yeah, I'm happy to pick this up. Here we have white red rare, 5/4, gains haste and vigilance if you have 1 or fewer cards. And when it hits, yeah, you get to search top 6 for legend. I don't really have much in the way of legends. I actually don't think I'm playing this Helliot at the moment. I'd rather play this knight and this slinger. So yeah, I'm not huge on this. It doesn't look like great for the stats. This thing is very powerful, being a 3-power flyer, but you have to sink mana into it, and I'd rather be sinking mana into like my equips and things. So this could be a huge mistake. Maybe this card is way better than I thought, but 3 mana 2/3, even with the upside of turning into a very real threat after, I was thinking is not quite on plan the way we've been talking about building the deck. This could very much be a mistake. I could see this being a lot better than my initial assessment. And it's not even about actually it being good versus bad. It's more about it being on plan versus what I'm trying to do. And so here that leaves these two cards, and I forget which I take. I think I'm on the intervention here. Again, part of it being I could wield this potentially. I don't know if I need another one drop either. And this intervention I think plays well in pushing damage with the protection. Sometimes you can push damage through, or protecting your big double striker in combat where it's otherwise going to be very difficult to block anyways. So I think I'm happy to pick up an intervention, and yeah, that was a pick. Here, this is quite a good 2-drop, I presume. I don't actually have that much in the way of non-creatures, so the prowess isn't super great, but it has trample and can carry counters good enough. And the flip side is, pretty powerful, even just with one non-creature. You can push some damage. So I think I picked this up. I am kind of almost like overflowing with good 2s here, so you could make an argument that maybe I don't need it, given that it's not super great on the prowess side in my deck. Yeah, alternatively I could pick another trick, but I have 2 tricks already that I'm happy enough to play. And this thing so just to spoil a little bit, I think I pick it up on the wheel and it makes the deck. I started to realize that maybe I should have picked it the first time through, even though in general I would say it's maybe not a good card. But when you have like 4 double strikers and you're trying to push damage and 2 things that get very heavily rewarded for having equips, and this can instant speed give something double strike, all of a sudden this starts to look like a lot better card. So yeah, as insane as it is, this might have been the pick over this, but I went with this one. Here, happy to pick up another one of these, as for all the reasons we talked about, very on plan. This thing quite good too, maybe for similar reasons, but I'd rather have the enabler with a backup than this guy on 4 mana. Okay, here, so there's this Urbrask, 5 mana 4/4. It gives everything haste, and creatures my opponent control enter the battlefield tapped. This could be just insanely unbeatable, maybe, but also as insane as it is, I think this deck super wants another one of these halberds. And this costs 1 mana, and this costs 5 mana, and I have 2 5-drops already that I'm very happy with in the deck. So I think I end up taking the halberd here over the Urbrask, which maybe is a crazy pick. Maybe this card is like unbeatable, but I mean, I was thinking it is a 5 mana 4/4, and my deck, if there ever was a deck that was going to pick a halberd over this, I mean, I assume this is it. I'm maybe too high, but I actually like this card a lot, and given that it's already positioned very well for me, I'm pretty into it. So here, amongst the white cards, basically, I think I'm choosing between these 2. This thing, I think, is certainly a playable card, but again, I'm not really trying to rush them down the way that this deck ended up working out. It has that capability because you can just go 1, 2, 3, right, and run someone over if they stumble. But at the same time, it's not like that's my only game plan. Like, I am going to have some big threats that can actually hold their own in the late game with these double strikers. I think I went with the other intervention here because the idea being that both of these can help a little bit push damage, but this one helps protect my threats, which once I establish them or put equips on them, I think the fact that their opponents are going to have hard times blocking means that as long as I can not let it get blown out by removal, I should be pretty good. Amongst these, I think this was just another 2-drop here that I ended up not playing all the copies of. I could see taking something else, but this one, again, I'm not really looking to do the battle thing here. I just want to kind of pressure their life total, I think. Yeah, it was the 2-drop. Here, I'll just take one of these. I'm not so big on this. It's a little bit inefficient. Yeah, so I'd rather just take this, and I think I don't play it either. Here, taking another... Oh, actually, I think I take the 4-drop because I noticed I don't have a lot of 4-drops. I thought I compared this to what I have at the moment. I'd rather play it over a Bruiser or a Heliod because the backup one is very nice on most of my 3-drops, which was kind of how I had intended to design the deck in the first place, right? So getting a 4-drop to curve into my 3s into the backup 4 is pretty good, I think, and on plan. Here, all these guys wheel. I think, should have taken this. Well, maybe, I'm not sure. I think I took another another backup guy. I think I was testing these for just get all of them and see how it goes. And then, as I said, I wheeled this, which was fortunate. I'm not playing any of these things. Same thing. Even with the consistency, quote unquote, of mountain cycling, I don't want to mountain cycle in this deck in turn 2 anyways. And I don't really want to get to 6 mana super often. So that said, this is what the deck looks like. This one is actually really hard to build because, as you can see, I ended up with a million 2 mana things, and I ended up not playing some actually probably quite good cards like Intervention, and I left 2 of these guys in the board. Just briefly, I keep 1 Intervention in, and just as like a way to protect in combat. I put this in for all the reasons we talked about picking it earlier, and left the Beat Stick in the sideboard because it's a little bit inefficient on the mana. Playing 3 of these 1-drops, and then my curves, all the 3s we talked about, the 2/4 backup creatures, 2/5 backup creatures equip, and so the plan is just to pressure and play equipments and see how far that gets me. So that's the deck. I'm going to go through and look through some of the games here too, if you guys are interested to see them. Yeah, that's it as far as the draft and deck build. I ended up maybe some interesting decisions. I just realized I didn't talk about the beyond the first 1, 2, 3s too much. I kept this in the sideboard even as just a generic efficient card because I was kind of all in and putting counters on a handful of good threats and trying to either protect them or create enough threats that I could just power through whatever my opponent was doing. And I ended up not splashing. I wanted to be a little more streamlined, and I think the rest of it we kind of talked about. So anyways, jumping into the games here. So this is the first game. I end up with a hand like this, 2 lands, and I have 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, right? So if I hit another land, so this is a keep for me. And here, 1/1. Notice pre-combating my creature. I mean, obviously my opponent's tapped out, so it doesn't matter much. But this way, if they block, I get to keep my counter. Send and get here. And my opponent, so this is kind of a timing tell, was thinking for a while and then passed the turn with nothing. So I had a little bit of a read that I thought they might have destroy target attacking creature, like deal 3 kind of thing. And I think there's one more. It might be 4 mana with Convoke, but the destroy target tapped creature. So the way this deck works, or the plan at least, obviously this is my first draft doing something like this, but the plan is that I can develop some fairly strong threats if I curve out. And so if my opponent ever leaves mana up, I can just wait on it because I actually, with the double strikers, have a plan that's strong enough to push past into the late game. I'm not in a position where if I miss a turn of damage, that I'm going to not be able to win, because I might be able to attack for 4 double strike later on, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter that I missed 2 or 3 damage here. So if I can strand their mana here, I'm happy to do that, so that they can't play something more efficient next turn. And it seems insane to miss 3 damage, but I think this deck can afford that kind of line of play. So here, notice they tap out for their 3 mana spell and leave up 1 mana. So that's the just 3 damage to target attacking creature. In which case, I'm thinking, okay, cool. So this to me suggests to me they very strongly have it, because if they had this turn and last turn and didn't play it, then they probably have the 3 damage one. So here, what I can do is just play this out, put the counter here, which means now if they have the 3 damage, they can't do anything because they have no blocks, and it's greater than 4 toughness now. So I just send with the 2/4. I get in my 4 damage, pass the turn, play out another double striker. Here, they play out their 3 mana guy, and I have enough threats now and good attacks that I'm not going to hold back, and I'm not going to hold back and have them stall out a really big attack with their 1 removal spell. So I think I'm going to send this turn. I put the counter here so that it goes above 3 toughness, and then I can send with... Oh, I guess I do hold this back. I'm just really trying to press their mana. I forgot exactly how this game went. But I did have a pretty strong read that they had it at this point. So here they play out this knight, makes 2 2/2s. So they have a pretty wide board. Note that they've left up 1 mana, attacking their battle. And so now I have a pretty big attack. Again, double striker. Opponent is at 4 life now, so they have to block basically everything. So I put the counter here and send. And these are how the blocks go. Double block here, trump block here, and they do in fact have it, so they kill the 3/2 double striker. And so opponent goes to 0, because again, this one was still not blocked. So again, notice this deck, I mean, my opponent wasn't curving out super hard, but this deck does have quite a lot of power if it goes, you know, uncontested, and that like they didn't have immediate removal for my things, and we play in a way where these become very strong late game threats, and I have the option to either split up my threats by putting the counters on multiple things to minimize the removal against it, and I also have the option, if I wanted to, like if they tapped out and just played one big thing, well then I could load up one thing and push through it and either force some chump blocks, or you know, find a way to push through that and get a big chunk of damage in if they don't want to chump. Okay, so next game. This one, again, decent hand, 2-drop, 4-drop, strong 5-drops, and 3 lands, so easy keep. Here, this time, notice 2 things. Firstly, I'm on the play, and secondly, it's more feasible that they could just miss their 2-drop than that they, you know, aren't necessarily keeping up the removal spell for it, and also this is not as big a deal if they remove it, so I'm just gonna get my damage in, play it. They plane cycle, they play this 3/2 here. Again, so this is an example of the Bola Slinger strategy. I put it on here and send and tap this down, and now I'm getting in for 6 on my turn 4, and I have another tapper coming in the following turn. So you know, this is what I mean with regard to it, with regard to this plan being potentially a very powerful thing to be doing. So I go here, and as far as the plan goes, so I missed my 5th land drop, so I'm probably playing out another Rider, or Billy Rider. And thinking about attacks here, I could send everything, but, well, let's see, so I think I do, if I send everything, and I tap down the 3/3, they don't have good blocks here. They can chump and sack. Oh, hard to highlight. Chump and sack to this thing to get a counter on it, and then it makes an incubate as well. So if they block sack and then this thing grows, then they can either trade with this or eat this. But I think that's putting enough pressure that, you know, I get 2 in, and, well, no, because yeah, actually what happens is they chump the 2/4, they sack it, and then they eat the tapper. I only get in 2 damage, and then that I lose a creature. Like basically they trade these, I get in 2 damage, and then I don't have this tap up available in future turns. So no send. They plane cycle and pass. So the fact that I hit my 5th land drop and can turn this thing into a double striker changes things a lot, because now if that same kind of thing happens, first of all, I get in 6 damage now, and also I have an extra attacker, so I'm pressuring harder here. So now it's time to send everything, I think. A little hesitation on my part, but here's the attack. They chump the double striker and block here. And I don't know if this was intentional or if it was missed. They could have, I think this is a Phyrexian, yeah. So they could have sacked it and put a counter in order to keep this as a 4/3. Maybe they wanted to incubate for some reason. I don't remember like what synergies could exist here. But they get the incubate token instead. Removal spell, and then from here, more double strikers. This thing is a must block now, which means this thing is getting in for 4, or they're chumping it. I don't want to send this one because they can just eat this 1/3 for free, the one without counters, and take 4 damage. I'd rather just preserve this as an extra threat, because if this one gets in, then this one is a lethal threat the following turn. So here, and so we got that, and we see this kind of grindy deck or grindy strategy where we can just like force hard blocks for our opponents because of the way that these counters and double strike and all that interact. Okay, this one. So this was actually a hand I was considering mulliganing, but I really wanted to test to what extent you can keep hands like this. And of course, one game is never quite enough, but I suspected that this kind of double striking plan, where again, it's a thing that can be powerful enough to go late. Maybe you can afford to keep a hand like this because you have some staying power. So this was kind of a for science thing, and to see how it goes. If I just can't turn the corner and don't get there because I missed on 2, that's going to teach me something about the format and about the deck. So opponent's kind of curving out on me here. They went this guy, 2/2 trample guy, into backup to put a counter on it to make a 3/3. And got a rummage in there. I have no blocks, so just doing nothing. Here, okay, so I have some decisions here. I could play the Inquisitor and make the token, which can block this, which is, fine. But I think I want to get the opportunity to push some damage with the Halberd on the double striker, and also it gives vigilance. So I'm happy to equip and send, and I also have this guy back on blocks, get 4, and then I'll just spend my mana playing this. I can flip this later. If they want to use like a removal spell to deny me the extra counter on this, fine. I'm perfectly happy for them to kill my 1/1. Here they send, and I think that I can actually hang with this kind of Gruul Beats deck in the late game with all these double strikers and with the equip. So I actually am okay to take this trade here just to avoid some damage, because I could just make another 2/4 double striker next turn bare minimum. So I'm happy enough to do that. And so here, rather than equip, I'll just make my 3/3. I do it main phase because if I wait in for their untap and they have some kind of cheap interaction to kill this, then I might not get my counter, and having the counter means that I can block this at the moment. So they play a creature and send. Turns out I'm not interested in blocking anyways, because the fact that I get vigilance on the backswing is a really big deal, and I'd rather be pressuring them. I can afford to take 3 more damage. Here, happy enough to bolster here onto my double striker and give it vigilance. It turns out they have the removal spell for it, so they tap and kill it in response. But fortunately, again, I still have another pretty strong threat here. Happy to send because they need to double block in order for this to trade. Otherwise, I'm getting in 4 damage or a chump. Happy enough to see it, re-equip so that I have the block up if I need it. And this is actually an interesting thing with battles too. I end up gaining a lot of life because of this battle, not just 4, because of the way that their power toughness interacts, right? So they hit it for 4. I mean, I could double block, but it doesn't do anything when you hit it for 4, and you have to hit it for 5. So I can actually just absorb a hit here. The flip side, by the way, I believe is not disastrous. It's like a 3/4, and they get to either like rummage a card or get a card from their top something. I forget exactly. But it's not the end of the world. It's something that I'm able to attack through. So then they play this equip with trample, which starts to get a little scary. This thing's going to get pretty big, but I think it's manageable. Here, I'm able to put the double striker on this thing, and also it has vigilance, so it's pretty sick. So I get to hit in for 9. All of a sudden, I'm looking way ahead in the race out of nowhere because this card just has a very powerful effect. Also, again, as a 3/2 double strike, it's a great blocker as well. So here they equip, and notice they just send. And I could trade here, and then they get their 3/4, but this is what I mean. This is absorbing another 7 damage now. I could just not trade. Their creature stays tapped. If they get their 3/4, they still have to trade that for my 3/2, and all of a sudden I have good attacks next turn. I also have a way to put a counter on my double striker, so I am perfectly happy to just let them kill it, which that battle now has absorbed 11 damage for me. So here, re-equip on this one and put the counter here. There's 2 reasons for that. First of all, if they kill this, or if they have a removal spell for it in combat or something, then I actually get to keep the counters, which is pretty nice because of the backup effect. And then here also, of course, they don't have a block on this currently as a 4-power double striker. So I'll send these guys and the 1/1. I'm assuming because if they have 1 removal spell, they can kill one of these, and then they have to block the other one. In which case, this is, I think, the 1/1 I think is a pretty safe attack, and 1 damage could matter here. So they actually have a pretty nice one here, +1/+0 and a bite effect. So they get to kill the 4/3 and trade off with the 4/4. But you'll notice that conveniently, again, because of the counter ability from the backup, I get now another threat, which I don't know if this is the right one, but the idea for this was that this 1/3 is going to be lethal with the flash equip next turn anyways. So if they end up wanting to like eat this, then I'll have lethal on the 1/3. And if they block the 1/3, then I'd rather have the extra damage push through here. So they play this. They can't really afford to attack even though it flips. I mean, maybe they can actually. They just get a free 3/4, I think. But I guess maybe their blocks aren't super good. Like they'd rather have the 6/4 back on blocks. I'm not really sure about that. I don't know what's in their hand either, obviously. Fortunately, I get this one, so I can give anything double strike instant speed with this. I equip this to make a double striker. They do have the removal spell here for the ram, but again, fortunately, I have the double striker for lethal. So again, okay, I drew super well. I ended on 5 lands here, so it's not like this was necessarily a representative game, but comparing to back where I ended up, this deck confirmed, at least against this matchup, did have the staying power to be able to fight a longer game. That said, like I said, I drew very, very well to just stop on 5 lands. So, still jury's out on that a little bit. This one, let's see. So similar idea from before, right? So I have 3-drop and 4-drop and 5-drop that are all very powerful, and this equipment. And so I'm happy enough to give this a shot. Again, I can test the same thing that I was willing to test on the last one and see how it goes. I am on the draw this time though. So here's my first turn, or first play, 1/3, and I send. And this is a turn where I know there's a 4-mana destroy target tapped creature as well, and I know that there is deal 3. So I actually make the decision to not attack here because I don't want to let them use their mana. And the way this deck seems to be shaping up to me, let's say I let them use their mana because they have the draw 2 card. I'm actually okay with that because I don't think that I'm going to get outvalued here very easily, because I can generate my own value in the form of pressure, because even at high life totals, these double strikers are huge, huge threats. So if this comes down at some point and this is all of a sudden hitting for 8 trample, I mean, that's not something to be taken lightly. And so I actually just play my 1/3 and the equip and pass the turn here, because if they ever tap out again, I'm going to have such good attacks with the equip and the bolster that, I just want to preserve my creature here. And so here they tap out, and same thing what we were just saying. I can equip the 2/4 and I can play the 4-drop backup creature. I think I keep calling it bolster, but notice they have no attacks here and I'm hitting for 8, right? They end up chumping, which is fine with me. I'm a little bit worried because I don't know if there's like Raz and stuff, but they play this knight and they end up just scooping. I don't know if it was kind of a frustration scoop or what, but again, I think next turn I had this, if they were tapped out, right? So I have this equip for Convoke, so tap 2, probably these 2, and 3 lands, and I can just equip it and then hit for 10 double strikes. Pretty big. So that's how this one ended up. And here, opener, all plains. I have a 3-drop, but I really do need the mountain at some point, and these are already fairly awkward in like my single creature hand. So I mulligan this one. Here I have 1-drop equipment, 4-drop, happy enough to keep, put back a plains, play this guy out. I can't attack. I think this one does combat damage equal to its toughness, so I don't really have attacks here. Happy to just play out the 2/2. Here I can't play any creatures, but I have Halberd and the Warden. So I'll play equip the Halberd, and then I'm going to put the counter on this guy too. This does 2 things. Firstly, if it dies at some point, then I get to move the counters because this creature has that same text on it. It doesn't need the backup. And of course, this is hitting for 6 double strike. The kind of quote-unquote disaster scenario, I suppose, is if they have the bounce spell on, like bounce target attacking creature. But even that is kind of fine. They're getting 1 extra counter from like this backup guy, but the other one I get back when I play it again, so it's not even that bad. I send, they just have cycling, and they're taking a hit for 6 here. Note this is my turn 3, and they're getting hit for 6 double strikes, so this is a very powerful effect. They play the battle, but they have no attacks. I'm sending for the same one, hit for 6, And so here I'm just operating on 3 lands fairly convincingly. They kill it, I get the counters here, and then they are kind of in trouble, and I'm just sending. And as you see, the pressure is being pretty effective here. So I guess, let's see. So they play a 5/5 actually, which they have the mana to use. And they have this 3/1 now. So this is getting to be a lot closer of a game than I thought, because the 5/5 makes some of the blocks awkward. I play this putting the counter here, I believe. Yeah, because first of all, then if it dies, I get the counters back from the backup trigger or effect, and also it means that it requires a double block or a chump in order, because it's lethal. So here, putting the equip here, and I'm sending with these two. The idea, I think, here was that they're both lethal, and these are the 2 creatures that will trade for this, remembering this thing has double strike at the moment. So they make their 5/5, they chump the 4/6 and trade here. Re-equip, and so we're just kind of grinding here. They change this to a 0/2. I messed this turn up because I forget that, I actually didn't know because I didn't read. This has Defender. I thought I just turned it into a 0/2. So I play my 3 mana Knight, and I think I put the counter here, thinking that I'm gonna be able to swing with it. And I even go to combat, and I'm like, oh, I was like clicking it. I can't attack. So I kind of threw a little bit, but just sending with this guy. Re-equip here. Note that both of these are still lethal. They send at the battle. This thing has vigilance, so I attack all here because I just clicked. Obviously, there's no point in sending these 0/1s. That was kind of a poor decision on my part. So here they chump, and oh, and this doesn't have the ability anymore, right? So this is just a 3/3, sure. So then they take 3. And here, just loading up on the 4/4 so that it's lethal and can attack through their 4/4. Send it, as well as the 4/6 double strike. They need to chump and trade. And so this is the kind of gameplay too I was thinking about when I was making this, where like these guys can just grind through most creature-based strategies. And again, just to make my point kind of more clear, I'm not saying that like this is necessarily like what white-red needs to be doing, but that it's a strategy that might be effective. I acknowledge I drew very well this game. Like my opponent has like 1 million more lands than me, and I'm sitting here casting like powerful 5-drops. So yeah, I drew pretty well, but again, hopefully this is a decent display of what this deck might be capable of, and a way that it's possible to build it. All right, so that's gonna do it. Hope this was useful for you guys, and yeah, good luck out there in the mom drafts.